What it is, y'all, it is your old boy Pilk, and I'm coming back at you guys with another Danmachi video. Now, today's video is going to be very different than anything we've done prior, and basically, before I get into this, I do want to say, first of all, I really adore this game. So everything that's brought to you guys in regard to this game, because you've already seen the title of the video, is brought out of love and respect for the devs, because frankly, if I didn't absolutely love this game, I would not have spent 3 years of my life producing content on it and trying to help build a community around it. So while we are going to provide criticism, it is all designed to be constructive criticism to help quality of life in the game. And some of it's going to be a little picky, and some of it's going to be a little weird. But all in all, we're not expecting, like, we're not trying to start a grassroots movement. We're not trying to do anything really crazy. All we're trying to do is provide some recommendations that would just slightly improve quality of life in an already amazing game that's very free-to-play friendly. And frankly, anybody watching this video probably just absolutely adores. So I want to get that out of the way first and foremost so that we're all on the same page. So that said, let's go ahead and jump into the actual content of this and get talking about it. And of course, if you guys are enjoying this content, make sure you hit that little thumbs up button. It's just going to help get this more visibility. The more visibility we get, the more likely we are to get some real eyes on this video in that regard. So that'll help the analytics. Commenting will as well. Let's get down to it. Now, when we talk about quality of life, one of the biggest things that I think we all can agree we would really like to see in here is improved character filtering. Now, when I say that, let me just go ahead and go into the album here and talk about what I mean. Now, we've got some good filtering here, but frankly, there is, like, you know, it follows the general meta, okay? So I'll say this. I'm going to be complimentary before I get too crazy. The filtering isn't bad. You can filter by physical attack, magic attack. You can filter by star count. You can filter by element. You can even filter by time limited, regular. This is implemented or unimplemented. I think, honestly, that's a little... I think that's kind of not really relevant anymore in the game, because a lot of our unimplemented units that never came to the US version of the game or EU or whatever, I think those are all gone at this point. So I don't know we need that anymore. One of the big things we could use here is a sort by killer style. In other words, like, we've got beast killers, we've got plant killers, you know, beast killers being a big one right now with Familia Royale going on. Those types of units really need representation in here big time. I mean, big time. We definitely need something that's going to help that out. The other thing I think could really use some major improvements here. So you got physical attack, magic attack, defensive, balance, and healing. There's not really one here for, like, units that do support. In other words, what I mean by that, when they do, like, physical buffing or debuffing, element buffing or debuffing, there's not really anything here that will be able to modify that in a way. So it'd be really nice as a way to actually filter this down by units that can basically change the way the rest of your team interacts. So if we had something that you could click that would let you say, okay, cool, I want to do this by, you know, even if whether it's an assist, because we have a lot of assists in here too, and you can't filter assists by elements. That is another thing that would be really interesting if we could filter assist by element. But both on the assist and on the adventurer side, we need somebody that can, or some way that we can filter units by their actual effect. Like, let's say I'm looking for a physical debuffer, so I need somebody in here that can debuff physical. So we can click like a debuff button and physical or magic, or buff physical magic, or something to that respect. And then of course element too, because it's really, like, we have hundreds of units in the game at this point, hundreds of them, not even exaggerating, and we need some way to be able to filter through them much faster. Now, we do have people obviously in the Discord and all that have worked on spreadsheets and things like that, but the game really deserves some better way to filter these units. It would be probably one of the biggest and best quality of life improvements we could make. So first and foremost, adventurers. We've got to be a way to filter these by killer type, like I said, plant, beast, whatever. Assists, we desperately need a way to filter assists by the element type. And then, of course, as I said and harped on there for a moment, we really need on both assist and adventure some way to modify our search criteria by what type of, and even like to the point of maybe doing, you know, an ascended and descended, because they have that for like levels and things like that. But some way, in an example I can produce of this, let's go back here and go to status board. If you go by party description, it'll actually say physical attack, rank, party, all this stuff, and you can do it ascending and descending order, but you can't do this for like physical debuff and whatnot. There's no way to tell who has the best physical debuff, or, you know, what units even have a physical debuff. That would be really, really handy. Both, you know, the physical magic debuffs, heck, even agility, dex, blah, blah, blah. But more than that, element. We need element debuffs as well. The filtering in this game could use a big overhaul, and it's not a bad thing. We've just received so many major upgrades to that aspect of how this game works. You know, when somebody asks me all the time, like, what's the best team out there? Well, what are we talking? Element? Which element? You know, are you just asking which element's best? Or are you asking, you know, which physical fire team is the best? Which, you know, there's so many different types of teams you could build, and there's only a handful of ways to filter it down. We just need an improvement on that pretty desperately, if I'm honest. Now, in Right Flyer's, I guess, defense, they have already said that they're working on things like that, but I am including this on here because we are talking about quality of life in March of 2021, and we don't know when or if those will be implemented anytime soon, so we just have to discuss that. So another part of this that I really feel like needs mentioning is the sorting of weapons and all that, and armor and other criteria of that nature. So if we go in here into equipment list, let's just go by weapon. You could filter this down by specific weapon type. One thing I do like, you can even filter this by the type of unit that uses that weapon. So let's say I'm looking for Otaro's weapons. He can use all of these weapons here. Now, the only thing that kind of aggravates me is you still have to like filter through all these, figure out which one is his weapon. I wish there was some way like it would highlight his exact weapon. Like if I didn't know that King's Blade was his weapon, I go, is it Glorious Axe? Oh, no, it's not. Is it Commit? No, we don't know it's that one. If I didn't know any better, I wouldn't know. So having the actual weapon, when you select filter and you filter by the unit, having some way to highlight that would just be a really handy thing, especially for people getting into the game. That's one thing that would be nice. It's not end of the world, but it definitely would help. The only other thing that is fairly aggravating, let's just go in here to Familia Royale right now and just grab my latest team. And if I wanted to add equipment to, let's say, Artie right here. All right, let's go to change equipment. All right, I've got to put armor on her, or a weapon on her. Notice that filtration isn't there. And here, there's actually not even a way to filter it by unit. So that, I think, is a major oversight that also needs to be corrected. But probably one of the most overlooked massive improvements that's really necessary right now for the game. Let's go in here and let's go to change equipment, right? I'll grab anybody, doesn't matter who it is. And we'll go to armor, and we'll go to filter. We can filter this down by ornament, and that's going to give me basically all of the anklets and all that stuff. But that said, I cannot filter this down specifically to what these anklets do. And when you go in here to ornament, man, we really need that. Because if you see how many ornaments I've got, pages and pages and pages and pages and pages. And if I go to find a revolving amulet, it takes forever. So if we had some way to mark this down to anklet versus amulet, and then, you know, physical versus magic for the amulet, or the type of element that is utilized here on the anklet, that would make life so much easier. Same with the robes. If I actually filter this down by robe, there's nothing here that's going to filter this out by element, because robes all go by element. There really is not. So just having an elemental filter on these items would make life so much easier. It is something we need so absolutely desperately, even more so than the item I was talking about earlier. Like, these really should be the elemental filters for these armors should be number one, probably the greatest improvement that we can make to the game, like, very quickly. And the other thing that I absolutely, as long as we're talking about filtering, shall not fail to mention, let me go in here into Familia Rush one more time, Familia Royale, sorry, one more time, and talk about this, because if I'm trying to modify things in here, it doesn't matter if I'm looking for a new unit or something like that. Let's just go ahead and filter this down. I'm going to look for a wealth, and I'm going to look for a 4-star that is dark. There isn't one. Okay, let's look for a water. Okay, I don't have that one. Okay, well, now I need to change over. So instead of wealth, I need to go to bet. Okay, and I need to change all this. If I need to go back in here and modify all this, it takes for bloody ever. I've got to click and select things and unselect things. And really, it takes forever sometimes to change your options. It would be so helpful if right next to this cancel button, if there's a little button that I could press that would clear all those out. Because sometimes, I don't know if you guys do this, but for me, sometimes I'll be looking for, especially for dispatch quests. Dispatch quests are the worst when it comes to this. I'll say, okay, what I need is I need Lulune and Fells and a mid and Argo. Okay, filter this down. All right, well, they're all used up. I don't have any in here for whatever reason. Or I'm looking for specific elemental ones. And it's the worst ones is if, let's throw eyes here into the mix. Let's take off Fells and let's throw eyes in here. Because that's then going to blow up the whole thing. And now I'm like, oh no, I don't need eyes. I don't want eyes. I got to undo her and then go pick my next one. If I could just, and if I have to undo all 4 of them, then I have to remember where everybody's at here. So rather than that, the only way to clear this out is to go all the way out here and then back in. And it seems like a minor nuisance, and it really ultimately is. It's not the end of the world, but having a clear button would come in handy at least once a day. It's just a tiny little improvement that I think would make a big difference in a lot of people's day. You might disagree with me, and that's fine. Definitely let me know in the comments section, but I think a clear button here would just be one of the greatest quality of life improvements they could make to filtering, and could be done like that. It could be so quick, so easy. I don't think there's much they would have to implement to make that work, and I think that actually would probably go the top of my unit filtering list, and it's not the most important thing, but only because it would be so fast and easy to implement. Somebody coding that would take 15 minutes tops. Now, since we did talk about equipment, I think there's one major elephant in the room when it comes to equipment, and that's how to get to the equipment area. You really only have one option, that's go here into the blacksmith. And I can't tell you how many times I've actually been in the middle of a fight or something like that. Let's just go into the Fallen Quest for whatever reason, it's right here. And I need to change equipment on one of these units. Well, if I go in here, and I go to change equipment, and I grab his equipment, oh my goodness, let's say for the sake of argument, let's go do it down here and grab something else. Let's say for the sake of argument, I'm trying to apply this for whatever reason I'd want to. And I can equip it, but there's no way for me to actually get from here into the upgrade section or anything like that. That would be a huge asset. So I can equip it, but once it's equipped, I'd then have to go all the way back out to the beginning, all the way back to the blacksmith. I know it's not a huge thing. It's just a little minor nuisance that would be super helpful. So having a way to get to the upgrade site, kind of like how you have smelting, how we have to use to go out to go to smelting and then back to upgrade every single time. Having a little button on that screen where you go to the weapon upgrades and then immediately back into the fight would be super helpful. The other thing that I think would be really interesting, let me go back into Fallen Quest because that's actually a good example. I have a little button over here that says My Fallen, and I'll actually click on that and it'll show me all the Fallen I've got. Even though I'm not doing too great on those. Everything else is respectable. Now, there unfortunately isn't one here in Exilia Quest. We really should have one of those there. There's really not a reason why there isn't one there. We definitely need that. But more to the point, if we're in Crafting Quest, and this is really shouting out to the people that are just brand new starting the game right now, Man, we need something so bad right here. A little button where you can tell what equipment you have, and then have a little button where you can go craft equipment right out of this screen. I cannot explain how handy that would be to our new players. That would be phenomenal. I really would love to see that change implemented just to help out those new players, like I said. But just generally navigating the equipment screens could be so much easier and so much faster from actual battle or screens like this in the game in general. Now, what I'm going to talk about this time is something very, very, very specific to the EU players, and I actually believe Asia Minor as well. And that is actually a big concern of mine. It's something I've been talking about for a very long time. If we go in here, we go to Ryu's story, and we go to the casino, oh wait, EU players can't. They don't have this option. And as a result, the item exchange. They don't have anything here in the item exchange. Well, what I'm really worried about are, if I go down here, up here, Happy Golden Mail. Now, I know I haven't farmed mine up. That's actually shame on me. I long since should have. And it'd be so easy to do it right now. But if I can make an excuse for myself for a moment, a lot of it came down to just disgruntlement from the way that the casino was handled. Because we were promised like blackjack. We were promised a bunch of other games. I was hyped for this. And then when they were like, we kind of can't. And I get it. I can't blame Danmachi or even Riot Flyer for making that decision. I understand why they did, but the EU version of the game does not have this item at all, to my understanding. Nor does it have the Happy Golden Knife or the 3-star versions of these. And there needs to be some way for EU players to be able to get literally everything that's in here. Like, for North American players and Japanese players, it's so easy. Like, and it's so free to play. EU players desperately need some equivalent of this because they're missing out on so much grinding joy with missing out on these mails, even though I don't have them. But neither here nor there. There's a lot of XP, I'm leaving XP on the table. There's a lot of XP and a lot of valis that is just left on the table that they really need to be able to take advantage of. When it comes to this next thing, I'm going to go ahead and say this is extremely vain. But it is something that's been a concern of mine for a long time, and it is something I think that could drastically be improved for the sake of the players of the game, and that is most certainly the cost of rerolling equipment. If we actually go into the correct screen here, go into Rehammer, and go into status, most of these are pretty respectable. 5 secret hammers for that, and there's a ton of secret hammers if you run 7th zone daily and all that stuff, or say daily, weekly. But if we go to attributes here, and let me go down here and find one of my behemoth or glorious weapons and explain kind of the biggest problem here. So there's a magic glorious blade. So if you're not familiar, glorious blades add HP. Now, this can be really, really, really handy early on in the game. Later game, not so much. But glorious weapons, and for those of you that are around to get the behemoth weapons, I have all of them, thankfully. Rerolling these, if you're not paying attention, is exceptionally expensive. Not only that, one of my biggest gripes right now is just the cost of not only rerolling this, but also equipment ascension. The cost of equipment ascension is insane. Number one, I don't feel like we should have to pay valis for a reroll on this. If we do, it shouldn't be terribly much because we're gonna generally reroll so many times, and oftentimes valis then just really becomes the limiting factor more so than either bellows or hammers. So personally, I feel like if we're gonna basically cost 25 Mystic Bellows to upgrade this stuff, there should be no valis cost. And frankly, this being 25 is kind of like nobody rerolls this stuff only because of that. Like, it's so rare to reroll a glorious or behemoth item. Maybe if it was 10 or even 15, but 25, 5 times the cost of most everything else, is absolutely ridiculous. But then to pay valis on top of that is wild. There shouldn't be much valis cost at all in reroll. I mean, I get why, honestly, IRL, if you're going to pay the blacksmith, you're going to pay the blacksmith. But it just seems counterproductive especially to expand the game and build upon a game that largely is, I won't say markets itself, but we as the fans of it market it as very free-to-play friendly, and this makes it actually a little painful at times. But if you ever do an equipment ascension, now the ascension items are so common and so prevalent, let's talk about the ascension cost. That is, to fully ascend an item, is 8 million valis. I'm sitting at 18 million. I did 2 ascensions the other day, and I'm done. I can't afford it anymore. Once you ascend a weapon, if you're not just sitting on tons and tons and tons and tons of valis, it's gone, it's done, it's toast. That is ridiculous. Even if it was lowered to 4 million, the quality of life improvement there is still phenomenal compared to what we're paying right now. It is just way too expensive to upgrade or even reroll items. And that is something that desperately, in my opinion, needs to be resolved. Now, I understand it, once again. You're paying the blacksmith, supposedly. But, come on, 8 million for an ascended weapon? Especially right now that Ascension is so just out there. It's there every week. 7th Zone is every week and has been for like a year now. Let's fix that, guys. Come on, that's just too much. When it comes to upgrading units, let's actually talk about upgrading the actual adventurers, and to that we're going to talk about CP items. I've been very vocal about how much I adore the CP system in this game. I think it's wonderful, and it's a great way to use some of your lower end units to actually upgrade your high end units, and I love that aspect of the game. But there's one thing and one thing only that absolutely drives me crazy, and that is every single month. First of all, if we go into the series and double exchange, the Aurario souvenirs. We get 99 of these just like everything else, but we have so many collab units, and it's the only thing that collab units really prefer. One, we probably need a big item of this just like everything else. Two, there need to be more ways to grind these up. They really should be in the event gachas and everywhere else that you can get CP items, and they're just simply not. These are extremely rare, and not having a big item hurts, and the only way you're going to be reasonably able to put some of these other CP items in is when you max out the other CP levels. And right now, I wouldn't even recommend that. I would recommend holding on to CP items because it's been about 2 years since they did any upgrade to the CP system. I would not be surprised if a CP system upgrade was in the works. But not only that, these souvenirs are so hard to come by. There's only the one souvenir, and they're not included in anything else. We really, really, really need to find a way to fix that. And the other thing I think would be phenomenal is when we get collabs, which is pretty rare in the game. But when we get collabs, these should be an infinite farm. Just like Exili books are in reruns, and Falna is right now in the game during any gacha, or say a gacha, event tale. This is... 100 of them sounds good on paper, but it doesn't work out when you're trying to max out some of those units, especially units that you just don't use anymore. Why would I throw big bouquets into Mikasa when she just doesn't work that way? She just isn't that great anymore, and I'm not getting value for my CP input. We need to improve that desperately. It is just a major, 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 major eyesore. And the other thing that I want to talk about here is meat fruit. Go away. Meat fruit. If we're going to be focusing on more Xenos, getting more Xenos units, we've got to find another way to regularly acquire meat fruit. Meat fruit should be a drop item in the gachas, in my opinion. And being the drop item in the gachas, yes, it can be lower, much lower, in fact, or we can get fragments of the meat fruit. But frankly, there needs to be something if we're going to focus on these Xenos units. CP needs a tiny bit of love. Everything else I adore the way it all works. I love how you can exchange Sirios for it. I love how you can, take advantage of it in multiple ways. And I love how it upgrades the units. But the souvenirs just need a slight overhaul. And meat fruit just needs more representation in general. So this is the part of the video where I start to get into some interesting topics. And this next one might be a little controversial to some people, but I think it's an important thing to talk about when we talk about how free-to-play friendly this game is. And that, of course, is the number of 4-star units in the game. as of recording this, we're going to get a big update here really soon on the general pool in the game, but right now, as I speak, there are 164 units in the general pool. When I say the general pool, I mean, if I go down here to Gacha, and I go over here to whatever tickets that I choose to pull on, and I go here to the single Gacha list, and it's going to pop down here. In fact, I did a second ago, and then I closed it up. Everybody here, all these adventurers, but that's not all. This also includes assists. This is a massive, massive, massive list of units. And as I said, there are, and I'm not exaggerating, 164 general pool 4-star units. Now, that is not including time-limited units. That is not including any unit basically we've gotten since January. So we have like, what, 3 months of units that are going to soon be added to that? Next week or two, I believe, as of recording this, as I say. So, beginning of January, we have 164 general pool units, and that is a lot. Now, for comparison, 2- and 3-star units, which we'll talk about here in a video in a few days, there are only 96 of those units. So, there are almost twice as many 4-star units, and soon there probably will be twice as many 4-star units as there are 2- and 3-star combined. So, there's an interesting dichotomy here. The problem is, most of these 4-star units are pretty much worthless at this point. As much as they've tried, and rightfully, I'll give them all the credit in the world, they've done some really good rebalancing on units, some more than others. But as of right now, as of recording this, the attempts to rebalance units have not been very good. In fact, when they introduced the new, I'll call it a meta, but it really is more of a system, for lack of a better way to put it. But the new units that get multiple attacks, you really can't rebalance a unit to equate to that without giving them that technique. So, or that system, as I called it a moment ago. So, as far as that goes, like, you're really not going to rebalance a unit in that regard. Now, to be fair, you could give them similar attack powers and all that, and they've done a pretty decent job of that. It still just doesn't kind of equate. And to be fair, not every unit either gets that, or gets that either. But that said, it's really hard to say that most units that are a year old or older are really worthwhile. There's few rare exceptions. And if I really want to point one out right now, it's one that I use a whole hell of a lot, and that is the Anya unit from the 2020 New Year's event. And she's still very good. A lot of those units are still very good. But even some units since then have really started to show their age. So it's a really interesting situation here. Now, coming to a solution on this is not an easy thing. But I've got a few ideas, and this is where I'm going to actually go ahead and pimp out my Discord. In the description down below is both my Discord, the Crude Suspension Bridge to Venezuela, and a partner Discord that we've actually partnered with for a very long time now, the Stardust Garden. Both of these Discords, I've actually hit people up, and especially my Discord for a great degree. They help me put together this list and come up with some ideas to try to resolve issues like this. Now, first of all, my idea has always been, if you look right here and you see the percentages, everything on this list is a 0.015% chance to pull that unit. Now, remember, adventurers are a 2% chance to pull in most banners, and then assists are a 1% chance to pull. So these are 0.015%, and if I go down here to the 4-star assists, they're a 0.013. Slightly low, it's actually anyway, a slightly lower percentage chance, and that's just because of the sheer volume of assists versus adventurers. So you do have a pretty good chance of pulling some units here. And I will say most assists actually don't need the rebalance. Most assists remain good just because of what they are. And rebalancing an assist, because there's so few of them in comparison to adventurers, kind of is not really a thing. So when it comes to what I'm going to talk about here in a moment, this kind of pertains mostly just to the adventurer units in the banners, because those are really the ones that have this severe drop-off. Most assists don't have this severe of a drop-off. when it comes to this, I think one of the easiest ways to resolve this is to reduce this number on older units. Any unit that literally hits that year mark should instantly be dropped down. So you can make this instead of 0.015 on everybody, newer units could be like a 0.025, which doesn't sound insane, but that adds up very, very quickly. And then literally divide that difference among all the old 4-star units. Now that does mean that every time you update the general pool, you are going to have to push some of these back, but I feel like that is probably the most fair way to handle this situation, because, and I can tell you from experience, I've got 2 4-star tickets I'm chilling on right now. If I go back out here, these, and I can almost guarantee you one of these units is going to be what I consider a bomb, and that's just a unit that I have absolutely no use for, and it just winds up being Dolb. Now that's not a bad thing necessarily. Dolb is very good, and is part of one of the things that will actually be sold to acquire Prism bonds that you could upgrade for other units. But Prism, literally, it'd have to get 10 bombs in order to sell the Dolb and get the Prism bond to upgrade, and Adventure 15 to upgrade and assist. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's a very distinctly good value for what you're getting. But honestly, I would just rather get a unit here that I could really use. And of those 164 units that are in here right now, there's probably 24 from the last year. Maybe more than that, maybe 30 or 40 from the last year that would be worthwhile at all. So you're talking literally 2/3 of this banner, which makes sense because the game's about 3 years old now for the global version, the US version, North American version. 2/3 of that banner, just worthless nonsense, and that's why hitting these sometimes isn't really even, like, it's just more frustration than it's really worth, because you see that rainbow and you get really excited, and then it's like honor bell for the 87th time. The stream knows what I'm talking about. So there needs to be some kind of modification to this. Now, dropping the percentages is one of the options, something I've been advocating for a long time. Another option is, and a lot of people did come up with this idea of just making them more of a free-to-play option. I don't know really how I feel about that. You'd really have to find a way to limit that to only new players, because what's really awesome about this game is how much it caters to new players and how much it really helps those players out. We're about to get a major influx of new players as we're getting collabs. There's going to be a 4th season of the anime. We're going to do an anniversary. This is going to be a ton of fun. So when it comes to that, helping those new players out, like last year in 2020, they dropped one of the early Argonaut, or one of the early Bell units, Argonaut Bell, completely free, fully maxed out. If they gave us opportunities, or if they gave new players who just are re-rolling for the first time, opportunities to get some of those units in the re-roll gacha, or maybe in a dedicated ticket or something that only new players can get, that would help new players out immensely. And while I'm not saying you can't give away the farm, you have to make people pay for something at the end of the day. Even free-to-play players, like, they have to watch, or they don't have to, but they have opportunities to watch ads. They have to do something and lots of things in order to make a little bit of money for the game. And whales like myself, really, we're the ones that support the game, but there are ways to encourage people to go out there. And I'm not saying you have to by any stretch of imagination. I always advocate for the free-to-play aspect of this, but remember, that's what keeps the lights on, so not everybody can be free-to-play. So while we can't give away the farm, I think if we give away just enough, it will help out growing the game and get more people interested. And inevitably, a certain percentage of those people that are interested and that enjoy the game will kind of go on up. Maybe they'll buy the Sears lunchbox. Maybe they'll start buying Sale Iris and things like that. So throwing that initial incentive out there actually is going to be a really good way to get people into the game. And I think they do a lot, but I'm just trying to find a way to make those old units still worthwhile. Because to new players, those units are going to be great, fantastic. They're not going to have any problems until they get to Heroic Trials, 7th Zone, Grand War, things like that. So just throwing some options out there. Now, and that would really only pertain to units that are maybe a year, 18 months, maybe even up to 2 years old. So not brand new units. So instead of having this 4-star ticket, this would be like an older ticket, kind of the polar opposite of the paid gacha we just got recently that you can only get new units off of. This is literally a free-to-play version that just gives you older units. So very interesting situation there, and I think that's a fantastic idea. I'm just not 100% sure how I would implement that. Now, the other thing that I think is really interesting, and we got to talk about this when we talk about units. Prism bonds, as I said before, are extremely expensive, and at this stage of the game, pretty hard to come by. Now, when it comes to star bonds, and let me just introduce a difference here. There's two different types of bonds if you're not familiar in the game, and that is star bond and prism bond. Star bonds are only used for time-limited units. Prism bonds are only used for non-time limited units. The difference being time limited units are things like anniversary units, collab units, special event units throughout the year like winter and usually Valentine's, so that's not the case this year. So star bonds are very specific, but it feels like we get way more gnome tickets than we ever get the fragments of prism bonds. And when I say fragments of prism bonds, let me introduce this here. So special exchange. If I actually go down here to the Hero Medal and Flame Amulet, and I actually did just do a Prism Bond earlier tonight, but it has taken me several months to accrue enough Hero Medals, that top item, or say top item, the little coin-looking thing over there. 3 of those will equal a Prism Bond, but you only get 1 per brand new tail, and that's when those tails support that. Not all tails do. These are very hard to come by. We have so many units in the game, especially now that we've got a ton of older units. There need to be more ways to get these prism bonds. If they literally just double the number of hero medals in the game, man, that would make life so much easier for a lot of free-to-play players. And when I say that, remember there's 164 non-time limited general pool units that you can pull at any point in time. And a new player probably is going to throw those prism bonds into units they don't fully understand or comprehend. It's just life. And us older players that have been playing this for a really long time, they're throwing more gotchas at us than they've ever thrown before. And while a lot of times we'll wail and just buy whatever we need to buy, there used to be a regular box that was on sale all the time that would drop a hero medal and a flame amulet, or even a full prism bond, and we haven't had that in a long time. Maybe, just maybe, start giving us more whale boxes that give us hero medal and flame amulet. Maybe give us more ways to farm these up. Maybe give us monthly goals to farm up a hero medal and flame amulet. Just something more, because I don't feel like there's enough of these. And if I can like expand upon this, we get just enough of these every couple of months to get 1 here, and then if you are lucky enough to pull a ton of 4-star units in the series of double exchange, you can get 1 prism bond up there for an adventure or an assist. So basically, at best, you're maybe getting like 3 every 2 months. 3, yeah, whatever, you get the idea. That probably, and that's like in the best possible scenario. It's a really low number when you consider, by comparison, if I go here to shop and I go to special exchange again and go to gnome tickets, I have enough gnome tickets for 5 full adventurer star bonds, and I wiped these out last anniversary. So right now I'm sitting on, and I've been terrible about farming. That's the really sad part about this. I've been really bad about farming. So I've not maxed these out by any stretch of the imagination. I've been very lazy about it. And I still am sitting on 5 adventurer star bonds. When the anniversary collab or whatever comes around, I can literally go in and max 1 unit out that I just pulled 1 of without thinking, without caring. And, well, I like that. I appreciate that. It's a great free-to-play system for the game. I would also definitely argue that there's something broken there, and I think there should be at least twice as many prism bonds thrown around as there are star bonds. And I do not believe for the last, I'm gonna consider year of the game the anniversary. I do not believe within the last 8 months we've received 10 prism bonds. Maybe we have if I really go by my old my old numbers. But then again, like I said, I'm lazy here, and I probably could have had 8 of these. So there's a give and a take here, and I really feel like there need to be more prism bonds. And once again, that's going to help the free-to-play aspect of the game, which in turn will invite more players, and as you invite more players, you're going to find more whales. I really didn't want to pick on this too much, but I do think it's one of the most undervalued portions of the game that really just needs more love. Now, I'm going to get away from this because I know it's a very controversial statement. You know, give more away to get more people to the game, to get more people buying things in the game, because ultimately that's the goal. Like, realistically, you have to remember, people like me, we keep the lights on at Right Flyer Studios. Just, that is how it works. Not saying that free-to-play players don't have their value, and I'm not saying that people watching the ads don't have their value, but you don't bring the value to the table that someone that spends money does. It's just realistic. And I don't bring the value to the table that a lot of the big mega whales do. Otherwise, I'd have every Unimax limit broken, which I don't. So it's a matter of knowing your place. But the reality is, more people, inevitably, some percentage of that is going to spend more money. So while I am saying give a little bit of this away, in return, I feel like there's going to be enough return on that investment, personally. Opinion, I'm going to move on from here because, like I said, this is very controversial. A lot of people are going to have a lot of opinions on this. But that's my stance. And overall, the Discord very much agreed. There were some, people that obviously thought we should change a little bit here and there. But neither here nor there. I'm going to throw this out there. Definitely let me know your comments in the comments section down below in regard to this as well. And once again, I'm going to at the Danmemo account and the JP account, both on Twitter. And maybe they'll see this, maybe they won't. Who knows? But that is my opinions on this and opinions that were shared. Now, once again, guys, in the comments section, please keep it civil. It's an opinion piece and a matter of opinion. And it's a lot of opinions. And we're not always going to agree. But we do need to at least respect one another's opinions down there. That's all I ask. So getting away from the really hyper-controversial portion of this, and I did want to kind of sandwich that in the middle of the video, let's talk real quickly about skill flow. If you're not familiar with skill flow, quick refresher. And once again, this is catered more towards the studio and all that, but I also do want to kind of get your opinions on it in the comment section down below. So once again, just as a refresher, skill flow is this right here. Literally, you could sit, and this is actually a team I've been farting around with. It's not my final team. Don't at me in the comments. Literally, you can go in here and you could set this up to do all kinds of things. You can literally set up a flow of attack, so to speak, in whatever event you're running. It's a really useful skill, and one of the worst things about one of these events is how brutal RNG can be. So when you set up skill flow, you can actually auto run and still have it do exactly what you want to do each and every time, and you don't have to babysit it, and you can get out lots and lots of attacks. There's, like sometimes I'm late at night and I'm running these and I'm just exhausted and I'm laying down on the couch and I'm just hitting a button, and rather than like having it mess up and really worrying about things, I can just hit go, and do modifications along the way that I need to do, because sometimes debuffs happen later, depending on our AGL and things like that. Skill flow is a great tool in this game, and I love it. It's just one of the greatest things they've brought to the game. Currently, it only works in Familia Royale and in Record Buster, and there's nothing wrong with that. But how great would it be to have skill flow in Heroic Trial? Oh my goodness. Especially the EX missions. It would make farming the EX missions completely possible. And that's kind of one of the big problems. If you do auto running at all, you will notice that your units don't buff. They might do some debuffs, but they definitely never, ever buff. They just go for the big heavy attack. And that's a problem. And that kind of defeats the purpose of the auto run. So, and I know like auto running is whatever, oh, you're not actually playing the game, but the system exists for a reason. Skill flow basically takes that system and says, okay, you can do what you want with it now. They wouldn't put auto run in the game if they didn't want you to use it. skill flow just literally takes auto run and makes it better. We should have skill flow in other events. Heroic Trial being probably one of the biggest, most helpful ones you could do it in. 7th Zone would be another really good one because 7th Zone is often affected by RNG, and just being able to auto run it with your specific settings would really help just like grind that RNG machine. The other one that I would really love it in is Grand War. The main reason that I would like it in Grand War for me as a content creator is to be able to set something up and show everybody these are the turn orders. Now, obviously, then people could copy your skill flow and things like that, and there's some question as to whether that's actually what they want to encourage or want to do in the game, but I really feel like from the standpoint of teaching people how to play the game, it would be another really, 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 really great addition. Just fantastic addition. So, skill flow, let's expand skill flow. Here's a couple of real quick, easy ones that I think everyone could definitely agree with me on. And that is number one, in the story events, and this is just, I don't know, my personal annoyance, but when you do a run here, and I'm going to go ahead and wrap myself out, I've not been doing so much about the story because I really want to run it and I want to enjoy the story, and I just haven't had the time recently, so I've not been grinding this like I should. But when you run story events and you finish, you have two options. First option is skip, and that's to go out and just be done with it, and you don't have to worry about all the end screens. I like that. Option number two is to play again. But when we're down here, like Battle 1-7, how many more battles do we have? A decent chunk. I have 9, well, there's stories as well, but neither here nor there. We're going to basically go through all of these, and at the end of the day, that even if I do skip, I got to skip, and then click the next one, and skip, and then click the next one. And it's not the end of the world, but how much time would it save, and how much more fun would it be if you just had a next button, especially when we're doing a contiguous story and you're enjoying the story arcs. Just when we're in there, and I'll just go ahead and run one real quick. I'm going to run the very hard so it doesn't bother with the story. But if I click right here, and I click go, so they've just killed the last foe, and we got our rewards, and we go in here, and then, obviously, like I said before, we're going to have the skip button right here and the play again button. But we don't have a next button. We really need a next button to go to the next story. Because like I said, if I want to go next, I just got to skip out, wait for everything to load, and then go back up to the new story, which actually isn't open in my case, and then go on from there. It would just make life so much easier. Another thing that would be really nice is to be able to have those. That's another thing that I can really talk about in here, especially for new players, is if I go in here to support, I'm going to have only a handful of units. It would be really nice, especially for new players, to have a few more friend slots. So the friend slots are really, really, really limited. I personally have had to be very picky about who I follow back. And I, as a content creator, a lot of people want me to follow them back that follow me. And I can't make those decisions very lightly. I've got to be really, really, really picky about who I follow back, because that's, you know, for me as a content creator, and I know that's a unique situation, but with new players, like, how great would it be to go in here and have a well of just phenomenal units that you could just pick from and go through? That would be so, so great. There's a ton of friend slots, but more is never a bad thing, and it was a common request when I put this in the Discord, so more friend slots would be very helpful. Yet another really simple topic that I think everyone could agree with me with, and I know I hear a lot of people begging for this, is the interact screen. While we do have a lot of units here in interact, man, we got 26 units, and I actually went through and did the math on this. There are 78 individual characters, not including anniversary units, not including collabs, 78 of the 111 that are total in the game that could fit in here. The other units that have lots of background, have lots of story, be it Sword Oratoria, be it the main story, be it whatever. And that's not including anniversary units that easily could fit in here, sans collabs. There are 78 units, nearly 3 times as many as we have in here that really could use interacts. So many characters that, you know, people know and they love already that could just And what'd be really interesting is characters like Anya Kitty. And, you know, really most of the Loki Familia in general that people just don't know unless they've read the Sword Oratoria light novels or watched the one random anime that it got. Those units, that would just be lore, honestly. That would be immense amounts of world building, not to mention a lot more farmable iris that would be for, you know, that free-to-play aspect I was talking about earlier. But really, people just really want more interact pages. And I'm not talking about, like, this, because I don't really count this. Like, it's great. We can go in here and we can pick Haruhime and we can change your outfits. I'm really talking about, you know, if I go over here to Anya. Anya's got stories. Anya's got quests. Anya's got, if we go in here to outfits, there's actually some iris that I haven't claimed for some of these outfits. So there are so many things here in the interact screen that they could vastly improve on. And not in a bad way. I'm not ripping on the game by any stretch. I'm merely making the suggestion that it would be a massive improvement. That's something a lot of people want to see. Now, the other thing that would be really fun, and this was something somebody brought up in the Discord, and I never honestly really considered this. But if I go in here to Haruhime, and I go to outfits, and I've obviously changed her into this maid outfit, and I go into town, you will notice if I actually run into Haruhime, well, let's see, Gareth's in town there, and Chigusa's in town. So let's go ahead and go to Interact. Let's find Chigusa real quick, because Gareth's not there. Gareth doesn't have an Interact screen. There's Chigusa. So Chigusa's Interact screen, if I go to Outfits, she's actually wearing this winter outfit, which is really adorable, really cute. And there's a ton of outfits in here. Some of these are really, like, old, rare outfits that you can't even get anymore. How fun would it be to go out here and see her in that outfit? It wouldn't take much to add that to the sprite. It's going to be a significant amount of data, and the game's already pretty massive, but it's a little tiny thing that I think people would really be willing to accept the big difference in data on, and people would really enjoy. To be able to go over here and to see that little outfit, not to mention it is, at the heart of it, this is a collector's game. And people love to show off really rare and weird things. Like, case in point, if I were to ever run into Raoul out here in the streets, and I have that Ghostbusters Raoul from, like, the 2017 event that only had a rerun on the US version, how fun would it be to throw him up there? And I know I use the trademark word. It's not supposed to be that. It's totally different. He's a ghost hunter. It's different. But how cool would it be for me to have him, and then when I talk to other people that play the game, be like, where'd you get that Raoul? That's from the 2017 year. It's that little bit of bragging right that really, like, kind of fuels the fandom. It's just a lot of fun, and it would give people a lot more reason to flex those older units. And even though, like I was talking earlier about getting them out of the pool, it's just another thing that would be really fun about having those older units, and might even give people a reason to pursue those older units. So that'd be really, really, really nice. Also, I think it'd be really fun if we got the April Fool's units, and like when they go into battle where they just kind of bounce around, that'd be another fun one here. Have the April Fool's units in basically in the street instead. And while I'm on that notion, let me also say I love the purchasable outfits. I really do. Let's go here to Eyes. I love it so much I've just kept Eyes on her at all times. So not only have that here, but also have it in there. And I love how they do it in the game. We need more of these. And I know they're working on building more. Let me make a big recommendation that I'm pretty sure is kind of a no-brainer here. But people are mad about their waifus. If there's any indication of that, I made a video, joke video on New Year's doing a waifu ranking, and people got super duper triggered. People didn't realize, I think, that it was a big joke. Like, I mean, people get, I'm even saying that's going to make some people angry. People get super duper triggered over their waifus. And I can assure you, if every unit in this game, I don't care if it's Gareth, some people are going to buy Gareth's wedding dress outfit for the lulz. If every major female unit or male unit or whatever in the game got a wedding dress, people are going to spend tons and tons of money. Tons of them. And then, like, literally just have the SA throw the bouquet at the foe. whatever. Like, I don't know, it's a more American or Western tradition, but it doesn't matter. Like, you will have plenty of things you could do there. Guys, exploit that. Exploit the heck out of that. I know it sounds super, like, predatory to say, but down to earth, guys. I'm going to be down to earth on this. I'm literally the middleman between my free-to-play people that I absolutely love and adore, but also the game. I got to play devil's advocate for them quite a bit of times, because I'm going to be honest, those would sell like mad. Now, here's one I didn't even consider, and this is one I'm going to give a big shout-out to the Discord for coming up with, is sac units, sacrifice units. If you're not familiar, it was a meta or a technique, for lack of a better word, that we actually used in Wargame and Record Buster and all that, where you take a unit and just let them croak turn 1, turn 2, whatever time they croak, and then it brings in a new unit. Now, what Right Flyer did, and I think is a great option, is they actually brought in a device called the revolving amulet, where people would wear that device at the end of the turn, they swap out, and the new unit swaps in. But here's the interesting part about this, especially in PvP, but also in Record Buster, PvP being Wargame, but also in Record Buster, which is largely PvE, but there's other things around it too. Just having the revolving amulet isn't enough in some circumstances. There is one player I know of on JP that has a huge advantage for seeing I believe it was the Winnie unit, the Winnie Adventurer unit, the value of her as a sack, and literally didn't upgrade. And I think Anya Kitty is the most recent one we got of her, is another great example of a phenomenal sack that really is really done a disservice by leveling up. We've talked a little bit about that in the past. So the Discord came up with a really good idea, and I don't remember specifically who did it, or I'd shout that person out individually, but what would be really fun is to either have a reversing mechanic where you can literally buy an item or farm up an item or whatever, and then fully reverse a unit down to level 1, or, and this would be even better, and it'd be real whale fodder. I mean, and I hate to say this would turn the game into a little more pay to win than it. I won't say it's pay to win already. I think the PvP aspect, a lot of people gripe about the King 1 wall, but I think the King 1 wall is more than enough if you're a free to play player. It's great payout. Don't get greedy, guys. But if you summon enough units and you've got them fully bonded, there should, if nothing else, be an option to use one final unit as a level 1, completely unawakened, completely unupgraded, whatever, just basic sack unit. That needs to be an option in the game, because even leveled up, you then start affecting agility, you start affecting dex, you start affecting all their numbers. And there are some units that literally, because of how fast they are, need nothing. They just come in the game, get their attack off, and bolt. I feel strongly this is something that we need. It wasn't even something I thought of. It was literally something that was brought up. But we need something, like I said, either a reverse mechanic or a mechanic that utilizes, a bond, that when you have, like, a unit completely bonded out and you finally get that extra bond, instead of using Dolb, which would be a really... There's some question as to whether that would be worthwhile on some units, but definitely there's some units where it would definitely pay out. That should, in my opinion, at least be an option. That'd be a great quality of life upgrade for this game. So quickly before I end this, I want to say there's a few things about the Familia system that probably could use a couple little tweaks. Largely, it's still very good, but there's a few things that I think maybe could use some improvement. A lot of people did bring up they think there should be more Familia missions, and I can't disagree with that completely. There sometimes where it goes a long time without Familia missions, and then some days you get a billion of them. So maybe something like that. Just in general, we could actually use some monthly missions and things like that, just in the game in general. But improving in-game message boards, that would be absolutely phenomenal. And even have a better place where not only you can search for Familias, but you can, like, advertise for Familias. That is really drastically needed. Right now in my personal Discord, We have a place where Familias actually can advertise, and we do applications for our Familia as well. And that gets a ton of traction, and that is really, really, really nice. But in-game, there's nowhere you can really, like, make a banner and advertise your Familia. And I think that is one place where the game truly, truly, truly lacks. Like, you can search Familias, but you can't really, like, promote your Familia, for lack of a better way to put it. And that definitely needs some work, if I'm completely honest. And the message boards are a little lackluster. You really only see messages if you go into Familia. And if I send out an urgent message to my Familia, 99.9% of them don't see it at all. The other thing that I thought would be really nice for Familias is reoccurring Faithstone donations. You don't necessarily need to include it as login, but if I go in here to Familia, I've got to go in here every single day, go to donation, and go to donate item. And while it's not, a bad thing necessarily, I really find some days that I'm like, because I'm a very busy person, I've got YouTube channels to upkeep, and I've got children, and I've got families and whatnot. I find sometimes it's very hard to come in here and remember to do this every single day. And while you should, it'd be really nice if there was a way to set up reoccurring Faithstone and Valis donations. That would make life so much easier. Now, it doesn't have to count as a login, and obviously it shouldn't if you're not manually logging in. The manual login for your Familia should be a reward that you are then being gifted and gifting to your Familias. So make sure you're doing that every day. But reoccurring Faithstone donations, I know some guys that are sitting at 600-700 of each Faithstone because they forget to do it every day because they're incredibly casual players, but they're part of a Familia, and the Familia could benefit massively just by setting that up. Basically, what you're doing is you're rewarding the Familia without you're still not rewarding necessarily the people, you're just rewarding their Familia. It's kind of a no-brainer in my opinion, but I think that's a huge thing for me as well. Now, one of the things that was very controversial, I'm only going to touch on this lightly. A lot of people have said they want this, and we couldn't find a good way to make it work. But no gacha does this, and for very good reason. I would love to have a way to take some of my bonds that I'm not doing anything with, rather than exchanging them for Dolb, give them to someone in my Familia. Donate them to my Familia members, or make it so, and this is one thing that I thought, an even trade for trade. It would have to then be, you'd have to have a generation modifier, you'd have to have, because obviously, like, if I'm giving them an honor bell, or Argonaut bell, or something really, really old, and yet I'm getting a brand new unit in return, that's not really fair. Plus, there needs to be some way to prevent mule accounts. If an account is, 10 minutes old, but you went and you ground up everything there is to grind, and suddenly you're like, yeah, I have all these bonds. Yeah, there's got to be some way to inhibit mule accounts. So, like, age of the bond. Maybe bonds lose value after a while or something like that. We talked about that in the section with bonds. There's lots of different ways that you can make it work, but I would really love, from my perspective, I've got Familia members that are new at the game, and I would love to be able to give them some bonds for units that they just don't have any bonds of. And once again, talking about the general pool being as deep as it is, I can gift them a bond that maybe would take them forever, especially if you do some modifications I was recommending to the pool, forever to pull. So I really feel like that would be a really, really great thing to do. Now, how do you do that without encouraging just everybody to go out and create a mule account and farm everything up, and then everybody's just completely stacked on older units? I don't know. I don't have the correct answer to that. And for that reason, no gacha game has done it. But if you do a collective value, like units that are much older lose a bit of value in that regard, or you do it like in a generational situation, like units, like go by the anniversary. That's that plain and simple. Units that are older than third anniversary have to be swapped for units that are older than third anniversary. Units that are older than second anniversary have to be swapped in second anniversary, blah, 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 blah. It's not perfect, and I'm not saying it's a good idea in general. I'm just saying it would massively help out those of us that run Familias that take on new members. I would like to see it, but I just don't know a perfect way to make it work. And to be fair, there's a reason that no other gacha implements this. That doesn't mean that I wouldn't love to see it, and I wouldn't personally love to help out other players. Even if there was no return on investment, I just think it would be phenomenal for me to be able to help them build the Familia and help them support us, especially considering a lot of these are pulled free to play, and then I just trade them for Dolb that sits in my bin for years and years and years on end. Just a thought, guys. Just let me know your comments on this one, definitely, but honestly, keep it civil. I know it's a very controversial thing. Once again, anytime we talk about units and things like that, it can get really heated. Be respectful of one another in the comments, guys. One of the final things I want to talk about here is Record Buster, and I think Record Buster overall is extremely good. I love the fact we got skill flow on it. If there was one big thing that I think should be added to it, if you guys aren't familiar, in Wargame, if you go to a Wargame trial against another opponent, there is an option there to try out new units, but we don't have that in Record Buster. And I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to speak candidly here, and honestly, every single Record Buster is basically an advertising campaign for the current banners. So why would you do that and yet not give people an opportunity to try out these units completely free? It doesn't obviously need to be a scoring rank, but having a way to try out the brand new units on your banners in Record Buster in a very free environment that doesn't necessarily, obviously you're not going to get a permanent score with it, would be just absolutely wonderful. We have it in Wargame. There's no reason we shouldn't have it in Record Buster. That's simple. The final thing I want to touch on tonight is Valis. Now, this might be, some people say we have plenty of Valis. I've got 18 mil up there, but as we discussed earlier, that will go away like that if you do any kind of ascension or anything like that in the game. So, cost of hero ascension, cost of weapon ascension, cost of any kind of weapon rehammering, crafting's really not that bad. Crafting's 100,000, but rehammering gets extremely expensive. Upgrades can get, especially with Ascension now, you already spend 8 million Valis just to ascend the weapon. Then you spend millions more just upgrading it. Valis is just way too rare a commodity right now. There are a lot of times where I've got units that I fully max them a break, but I can't completely awaken them or can't completely upgrade them because I just don't have the Valis. Valis runs out real quickly. It is just one of the rarest commodities in the game. I say as I've got 18 million, but like I said, if I really go crazy, that 18 million is gone. And I've already shown off several times in this video how many units I have 4-star that are not awakened at all because they're not nothing. They're like level 1 with nothing in them because frankly, I'm never going to use them. A, B, it's such a waste of resources for me. So, and yes, I know there's Iris that I could farm up. I'm saving that for basically saving that for a rainy day. So, number 1, the cost of things needs to be much, much, much lower. Number 2, now we'll address this because the Valis quest did just get a big update. Exilian Valis quest got a massive update. Valis quest now pays out about 200,000 versus what it paid out before was 100,000. So doubling is not bad, but I still feel like it's way too low. And the Mega Valis quest really needs to be updated to 1 million Valis minimum. And we need to have that back on the regular, at least one week a month. Period. That's it. The Valis quest, it just really needs a massive upgrade. It needs more Valis than we're even getting even after the upgrade. It's just way too rare. Valis does pay out okay when you're running the main tail event and farming it for the gachas, but it still doesn't pay out great. And it kind of goes back to the EU players really need the weapon that gives them Valis, because it's really unfair to them that they don't have anything there to boost that. That is super uncool. And just in general, it just takes a really long time to farm it up. So we just really need more ways to farm it, and or preferably both, just a little bit less cost. Valis is just, like I said, a depleting asset. It's gone instantly, it seems. So those are my recommendations for now, guys. Like I said, I don't want to tear the game down. I love this game so much, but we did get a number of really great ideas, really great comments on this, and I really wanted to bring some ideas to light. Some of these might never get implemented. In fact, most of them probably will never get implemented. But there are a few major outliers that I think could do really, really, really well for this game's longevity. I know it's a very long format video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section. I'm going to break this up into different chapters for easier consumption, and hopefully that helps you guys out. But for now, make sure you guys have liked, commented, and subscribed. I've worked really long and really hard on this, and it's rare that I don't want to say put this much effort into a video, but to do this much editing and to do this much work, that's how passionately I feel about this game, how much work I'm going to put into this game, and how much I really would just love to see this game succeed and do nothing but get better. It's my video, guys. Like, comment, share. I'll be back at you with more Danmachi very, very soon.